Hey everybody, welcome back to the garage. So unfortunately, the footage for the install of the clutch was corrupted once again. My GoPro or my card or something, I'm not quite sure what happened, but anyway, at the end of the first video I was discussing measurements from the slave cylinder on the transmission, and this worksheet right here. Alright, so this is the main thing I wanted you guys to know in the second half of installing the clutch, was the measurements needed to install the clutch. Now a lot of manufacturers aren't going to tell you this. I got this off of Ram Clutch's website. Just so happens their clutch is very similar to the McLeod. This worksheet makes it nice. So what you're looking at here is the back of the engine block, the crankshaft flange, of course the clutch with its mating surface to the flange, pressure plate fingers, the bell housing, and this is the OEM slave cylinder. Now you can see here, here's the bearing in the extended position. Here's the throwout bearing kind of ghosted in the compressed position. This was the measurement you saw me take in the previous video, 4.818 inches. Cross that straight edge while compressing this bearing down. That gave me this measurement. Now you'll notice the measurement that I took from the back of the block to the top of the fingers, 4.668, is quite a bit bigger than from the bell housing to the bearing. So you can see there's a lot more distance here that's going to go inside this bell housing than what this bearing is going to allow. So what's going to happen is these fingers are going to come up against the bearing and push the bearing this way until it's 4.668. Okay, that's called preload. So we're preloading the bearing onto the slave cylinder. My particular preload is 0.788, and then what that leaves us, you can see here, 4.818 minus the 4.668 is 150 thousandths. So what that means is that as the clutch wears, these fingers will start to extend out farther, and this bearing will get pushed further and further toward this direction this way, until eventually the fingers are sticking out so far that the bearing bottoms out. And in this case it'll be 150 thousandths, it'll bottom out, and then the clutch will start to slip. Now ideally for my clutch it should have been 200 thousandths of clearance. I only have 150, and the only way I can remedy that is to actually take material off my flywheel. But it's best if you're into this thing and you have it apart to mock it all up, get your measurements, and make sure that your clearance is proper before you get this balanced. And like I did, I had my clutch balanced and everything before I did the measurement. So unfortunately I didn't quite reach the 200, which isn't a big deal because more than likely I'm going to be back into this transmission before I ever use up this 150 thousandths in wear. Now if you're using an aftermarket slave cylinder, whether it's a Tick Performance, a McLeod, maybe even Ram, any number of others, these numbers might be different. You need to consult your clutch manufacturer and the manufacturer of the slave cylinder, and you're going to have to figure out what you're going to need to do in order to get your correct clearances for the clutch that you're using, so you have enough room for wear. If you don't allow for that wear, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be back into the transmission, back into the clutch, trying to figure out why it's not working. These measurements are important, so I wanted to bring them to you. Alright everybody, well, So that's the gist of it. Stay tuned here. I've got video coming up where I left off with the corrupt video. I believe I'm installing the drive shaft loop, so I'll have some information for you there. And hopefully this has helped you a little bit to know that there's some pretty critical measurements when doing a clutch. You really can't just slap it in there. If you do, you may run into issues. So enjoy the rest of the video. So now that we took the 15mm flange nut, I guess you'd call it, we were able to pull the cross member down and expose these. This is what the mount's going to go onto. Right now we just have this hanging here on these bolts for the transmission support. I just cleaned the brace there because it was kind of gross. But these spacers are going to go here, since we have that other plate spacing off of this in order to torque it down. But we're going to get those on there, lift this up, and get those nuts on and tighten this down. Should be pretty easy. Putting the hardware in, and it says to put it in with the nuts facing out. So I went to the store and I got new grade 8 hardware, instead of the junk that they had, which was grade 5. Would it have worked? Yeah, probably. The nice thing about grade 5 of it is it bends instead of just snapping. But I suppose grade 8 will bend to a point too before it breaks. You know, I'm gonna take one of these so I can figure out what wrench I need. And there's the hardware attached and the loop going around. So, we're gonna tighten that down, and then we can finish torquing all the nuts and bolts. Let's see what I was looking at. 43 foot-pound are for these bolts up here. We never took those out for the top of the mount, the isolator. We're just concerned about number 2, which happens to also be 43 foot-pounds, and number 3, which is also 43 foot-pounds. Boy, that seems like a lot for that little nut. But yeah, okay. I put a little blue Loctite on it. Okay, maybe I put a lot. $15mm, not 18.
that is done. It is on there. You can see the spacers there. They're all torqued to 43 foot-pounds. Still have to put that shifter up, but that's all right. I'm gonna do that from inside. Everything looks like it's clearing so far. All we have to do now is put the exhaust on. And the tunnel brace, which goes across right here. Well, as the way things go, I forgot something. So this heat shield, I took it out, cleaned it up. Has to go on the inside of these cooler lines, so I had to disconnect this little clamp here with those speed nuts. Not a big deal, it just kind of bends around. Wasn't difficult, but I wanted to show you a good product that we use in the shop where I work, and it cleans grease very well. So here it is, super clean. Kind of stings your eyes. It's probably acidic, so I would be careful where you use it. Pre-test an inconspicuous area. Yeah, you let it sit on there a little bit and it just dissolves grease. And I take a light brush to it if you want, but yeah, a lot of times you can just rinse it off. It's really good stuff. Well, we took the opportunity with the exhaust off to clean up a little under here. That oil leak I had really kind of coated the whole thing in a thin film of grime. So it's not perfect because I didn't actually wash it, I just wiped it all down. So it is much better. And I have the off-road pipes in with the O2 sensors ready to go, clamps ready to go. I'm going to zip tie those lines up, clamp everything up, and then we'll see what we have to do from there. Hopefully that clears. Looks like it will. So we're in the home stretch here. I got the hangers set up. There's lots of leeway in here on all these. You can see they're sticking out because I haven't adjusted them yet. You can tuck them in, or anyway, see, those are pretty easy. I use the transmission jack to help support the exhaust, and the jack tray in case that end falls down. I don't create a problem. All right, well, it fits. There is a little less than 1/4 of an inch gap from that. Exhaust is not touching anywhere. All my joints are tight now. I did notice that my exhaust system here, from here back, was this way. So I may not have had these tight enough to keep the hangers from slipping in the back, because these were butted up to the back of these when I put this exhaust together a couple of years ago. So it's a good thing to check the exhaust. These are original clamps. These lap clamps are from, I think I got them from Fleet Pride. I think they're Fleet Right brand. They're awesome. They do a really good job sealing. I threw the hardware away for the Speed Engineering headers because it wasn't any good. But all that's tight. Just need to plug in all the oxygen sensors, get them wrapped up, get the car down, and bleed the hydraulics. And of course, check the tranny fluid, make sure it's full. There's the drain, there's the fill. So easy to do here. So special thanks to my friend Vic, Vicster from Camaro 5, for recommending this to me. It fits great. Fits a ZL1. I was told none of them do. It's a perfect fit. Well, I'm afraid I can't find the torque spec in the book for the tunnel brace. I'm going to assume they're 43 foot-pounds by the size of the bolt. So that's what I'm going to do them at. Hopefully I don't hurt something, but I think that would be correct. It's either 37 or 43, but yeah, I can't find it in the book. So somebody knows where it's at, let me know.
So I went ahead and bled the clutch, the slave cylinder, and added fluid to the master cylinder as needed while I did the bleed. Here is the TIC Performance remote bleeder. Brought it up from down there, zip tied it along with my O2 sensor harness to keep it away from the headers. And I can just kind of tuck it there. And I put a little rubber cap from the slave cylinder on there to protect that, keep it clean. But I can just tuck that in there like that, and it works great. So what I did was I actually took this out because my little vacuum deal for this wasn't working very well. I had to throw it away, and I haven't got a Mighty Vac to replace it. My Motive power bleeder only fits this cap. So you might be able to do that if you didn't do this conversion. I have a video on the install of this, but the clutch is now separate from the brake master cylinder reservoir. If yours isn't, you could use the Motive, but the whole idea is you don't want to be pressing on the pedal. Really what you want to do is either pressurize this or put a vacuum on this until you get fluid coming out of here with no bubbles, while not letting this or this go dry, whichever way you're doing it. So I had a turkey baster, and I would just come over here and drop fluid in with the turkey baster while I put a vacuum on this. Now I did take this out, and it's kind of silly, but I had a hose that fit over this pretty snug, and it was probably 5 feet long, and I just sucked on the other end of the hose, obviously while not getting oil in my mouth, but sucked on the other end of the hose until fluid started coming up in the hose, and it started coming clear like the fluid I was putting in. I just never let this dry. And then what I did, I had towels laying down because brake fluid will eat through paint, and it only takes seconds for it to color it. So if you get any on here, be sure to wipe it up right away. Don't let it sit for any length of time. I know a guy that damaged his paint because he had some drip and he didn't catch it, and you could forever see it. So anyway, that's all I did was kept putting a suction on this end, and it was really easy. With this out and only this here, it didn't take much suction at all in order to pull all clean fluid through the slave cylinder. Now the pedal did go to the floor, and you know, after I had fluid all through it, I'm like, why is the pedal going to the floor? Well, after I got done and got the tube off of here, I put this back on and tightened it, and then I cycled the pedal because I know I had clean fluid everywhere. It was okay to do that, and I pressed on the pedal, and about the 6th time it firmed up, and that was it. It was good to go, and it's been like that since. There might be a little bit of air in here at the top of this, but there's no air in the system down there. One of the reasons I brought this up into the engine bay, besides being close to the master cylinder and I can see both at the same time, is even though it'll go either way, air likes to go up. So any air that comes into the system hopefully will end up here instead of in the slave cylinder or master cylinder. So that's why I did it this way. Mostly it's just easier to do under the hood. It's all right here, and I just make sure towels were down everywhere. The engine was cool, and it was really easy to do. Put that back on, tightened it up, put the little rubber cap on there, keep it clean, and we're done. But I'll make a video later on showing how to do that. Maybe when I get the Mighty Vac, it'd be better, and that way I can show you the guys a proper way to do it. So I did take the car out for a drive, and the clutch feels good. It engages and disengages without chatter or shudder, and it engages and disengages in the same spot as stock. So I'm very happy with it. The pedal is a little bit heavier than stock.
as would be expected for the 1200 horsepower clutch. But I'm happy with it. So I would recommend it if you plan on getting near 1,000 horsepower in the future. It's definitely a good way to go. So, hey, well, anyway, thanks for coming back to the garage, watching the clutch install. If you like my videos, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and we'll be making more, I'm sure. So thanks for stopping by. Have a great night.